today we're talking about estimating percents of a number. So on the first couple that we did together, we didn't necessarily have to estimate because we had numbers that worked out well together. So I was talking about using a question like 20% of my cookies have chocolate chips. I have 15 cookies. How many cookies have chocolate chips? When I look for the number of cookies that have chocolate chips, that would be finding the percent of the number 15. So I wrote here, I'm looking for 20% of 15. When I look at my benchmark percent numbers, which benchmark percents work exactly like benchmark fractions. In fact, most of them are the same as a lot of the benchmark fractions that we used when we were studying our fractions unit. So 20% is equivalent to 1/5, and we've already studied how to find fraction and percent equivalence. And I know that 1/5 works nicely with 15 because 15 is a multiple of 5. So 20% of 15 is the same thing as 1/5 of 15. And I know that 1/5 of 15 is 3 because 15 divided by 5 is 3. So therefore I have 3 cookies that have chocolate chips out of 15. And we did that again here with 33 1/3% of 300. The fraction equivalent was 1/3, so 1/3 of 300 is 100. 10% of 60, the fraction equivalent to 10% was 1/10. 1/10 of 60 is 6. So now I'm looking at estimating with compatible numbers and benchmark fractions using numbers that work well together. So I'm going to see if I can get my list of benchmark fractions to show up on the side over here too. I can see most of them. So now we just looked at this question, 48% of 64. So we wanted to change the percent to a benchmark percent that was easy to work with. The closest benchmark percent to 48% was 50%. The fraction equivalent is 1/2, and I knew that 1/2 works well with 64 because 64 is even, it divides by 2. So instead of 48%, I estimated it at 50%. 50% of 64 is the same thing as 1/2 of 64, and 1/2 of 64 is 32. So my estimate of 48% of 64 was 32. So let's try number 2 together. Number 2 says 13% of 96, which sounds kind of hard to think about. There is a way to find the exact amount for 13% of 96, but today we're just worried about estimating these. So the closest benchmark percent to 13% would be 12.5%. It's way down here at the bottom of my list. And 12.5% is 1/8. Then I have to think, okay, 12.5% is the closest benchmark percent to 13%. The fraction equivalent is 1/8. Does 8 work nicely with 96? Are 96 and 8 compatible? And I'm going to think, yes, they are, because 96 is a multiple of 8. I know I can divide 96 by 8. So I'm going to estimate 12.5% of 96. The fraction equivalent to 12.5% is 1/8. So I'm going to change this now to say 1/8 of 96. If I divide 96 into 8 parts, then I know that one of those 8 parts is 12. So I can say that 13% of 96 is about 12, because 12 is 12.5% of 96. All right, so now we're ready to estimate 76% of 47. So on number 3 that we just did in class, we talked about how this time we not only had to change the benchmark percent, but we also had to estimate the whole number. So I estimated 49% first to the closest benchmark percent, which was 50%. And then I knew the fraction equivalent was 1/2, so I needed the closest multiple of 2 to 61. I chose 60. 62 would have also been a good choice. Then 1/2 of 60 is 30, and I can say that 49% of 61 is about 30. So number 4, I'm going to look for 76% of 47. The closest benchmark percent is what I want to start with. So the closest benchmark percent of 76 is 75%. So let's go ahead and estimate the percent at 75%. Then I need to go ahead and think forward at the fraction that's going to be equivalent to 75%, which is 3/4. So the whole number that I'm looking for needs to be a multiple of 4. So the closest multiple of 4 to 47 is 48. And I'm looking for 3/4 of 48. 1/4 of 48 is 12. So 3/4 of 48 is going to be 36. So then I know that an estimate of 76% of 47 is 36.